Today we are mapping brows on a permanent makeup client. She has previous work done by me. The last touch-up was 3 years ago, and I am beginning here by wiping off the numbing cream. So this would be a little different if you were doing a tinting client. You would still be cleansing the brow at this point, and then you would brush the brows and you would do the trimming. Just to get an idea of what the brow shape is. Right now I am marking the center point of the face, so I've pinched the bridge of the nose to find the center point, and it does look a little off, but you'll see why I did that later. You can kind of tell right now the center of the face, the center of the forehead is marked off, and so people have unsymmetrical features, and that is why it does not look completely symmetrical, but it all comes together. So we use the outer nostril to mark the front of the brow, and we come straight up to the corner of the eye to find that point, the front of the brow. It's usually a few millimeters from the actual corner of the eye and in between the bridge of the nose and the corner of the eye. And then you can use your caliper tool to measure for symmetry. Usually I'll choose a brow that I like, and then I will mark that arch first and then mark it on the other brow. And same with the tail. You can measure the brow you like and then measure the entirety of the brow and do the same thing on the other side. You'll notice with this client, she has a round face shape, so we have chosen an angled brow, and this will ensure that she has more of an elongated look to her face versus if you went with a straight brow, that would sort of keep her face compact. Now, this is the flexible ruler that I talk about in the course. This one's by Supercilium. You can order anything off Amazon. And so what I'm doing is I'm just checking symmetry based on the center, so you can see where the 0 is on the ruler. That is the center of the face that I'm using. And then I'm just marking off to make sure everything is symmetrical. And it is. So then I can go ahead and start with the string. And this, you'll find the string really helps you to see like the real balance of the brows. This client, she has a lot of hair, so you don't get to see how you would sort of form a brow that maybe didn't have tails. In that case, you would use the cartilage of the ear just below the top of the ear where there's sort of a dip in the round of the ear. You can use that to determine where the tail is. So I will make another video with someone who is lacking brow hair to show you that. And what I do with the string is when I'm measuring from side to side of the face, I'll push down, say on my left hand, and then go straight across and then push down with the right hand. So you can see I'm kind of like making a sawing motion. And that's just to make sure the ink is getting transferred to that part of the face. So here's something I do differently than a lot of artists. I go from the bottom of one brow's, where the points meet at the front of the brow, to the top of the other brow to find the angle of the arch. And for the bottoms there, you're just going from the bottom of the front of the brow up to the mark that you made for the lower arch. And now this would be considered the pre-draw. So when you saw I cut two, you just sit your client up, make sure that you look at them front facing. You can have them look in the mirror, make sure everything looks symmetrical when they are standing up versus sitting down. And then also you'll notice if the client has a brow pull and they open their eyes, the brows will look unsymmetrical. So you have to, I've had to in the past, take a picture of when the client's eyes are closed and then take a picture when the client is sitting up and their eyes are open to show them like how different it is. And a lot of clients are truly shocked by that because they're like, oh, they don't look symmetrical, and it's because of the brow pull. So of course you would not do your brow mapping based on a brow pull. You want to do when their face is fully relaxed. And then once she has confirmed the shape is okay, then I just go ahead and measure again with a caliper. Like they say, measure twice, cut once. And here I'm measuring the distance from the eye, the outer corner of the eye, up to the tail. And then I'm going to take it to the other side and make sure it matches. And this is exactly why we measure multiple times, because I found here that her left brow is actually higher than the right brow. So I sat her up. I took another look. Then I laid her back down. And then you'll see that I wipe the brow off and I adjust it to where it needs to be. So of course, don't wipe the entire brow, just wipe the part that you need to correct. Do your measurement again, then mark where the tail needs to be and go ahead and use your string to create the tail again. So the tail was only off by 2 millimeters, I would say, but you just want to make that adjustment to ensure you're getting as much symmetry as possible. And then I come back with a string. The string is the easiest to make those nice straight lines. And then this is the surgical marker. So you're just marking those 5 points of the brow, the top and bottom of the front, the top and bottom of the arch, and then the tip of the tail. And then I create little tiny dots along the entirety of the brow, just to kind of keep a blueprint for myself. But this would not be necessary if you're just doing a tint. I do this during the permanent makeup because we are constantly wiping the brows. And so you kind of want to have something permanent. If you don't want to watch me tattooing, skip to the end so you can see the final product. I'll pop it up right now too. There is such a difference between the before and after. If you're someone who's interested in permanent makeup, you'll notice that my client is perfectly comfortable. She's not flinching at all. She's able to talk. I think later she even falls asleep at one point. So brows are a totally comfortable service. I always tell people the worst part is at the end when I do the hair removal, and they agree. I'm just making small hair-like strokes all across the brow, and this would be the first part of the service. I call it the blueprint or the skeleton. Many people refer to it. So you're actually just doing a few lines. If you were doing powder, you would just be using the whipping technique throughout the entire brow, really just to open the skin so that you're able to numb it again, and then the client is comfortable for the remainder of the session. This client does have high blood pressure. She is taking medication, and so I would expect some minor bleeding. She doesn't actually start bleeding until the end of the service. So if you find that your client is bleeding, it might be because they drank coffee, it might be because they drank alcohol, it might be because they have high blood pressure and they're taking blood thinners. If you find that there is a lot of bleeding, it's usually a sign that you have to change your technique in some way, or that the client has done something to thin the blood. And so you would just kind of hold gauze on the area, try to switch up your method if you're finding there is a lot of bleeding, and go from there, reassess. So that is the first pass. I just wipe it and then I apply numbing. And when you're wiping it, you're able to see how did their skin take the pigment. Hers did pretty good. So you know for next time if your pressure was okay. But actually pressure you can feel, if you're at the right depth, you'll feel vibration in your left hand or your non-dominant hand. So I'm just going through and doing the same thing on the other side. I'm creating the skeleton and then I'll wipe it, check how the skin is doing, how it's taken the pigment, and then I will numb it and move back to brow 1. Of course, for time purposes, I am cutting a lot of this video. The total service time was about an hour and 15 minutes. So here I am well on my way through the second pass on the first brow, and I actually go over the brow twice during the second pass. So I'll complete this and wipe it, and then I will go over the same lines that I made. And you just want to make sure you're wiping it really good, getting off all of that pigment so that you can clearly see the lines that you've created, how the skin is doing, and where you need to work. So definitely don't be afraid to push the skin or the hair around like I'm doing. Getting under the hair if the client has a lot of hair is really important because the hair traps the pigment. Now I'm going over the lines that I created during the skeleton and during the beginning of the second pass. With permanent makeup, the rule of thumb is always go lighter to begin with because everyone's skin is so different. You want to go a little bit lighter because you can always add, you can't take away. And you can't see here, but I can still see my surgical marker, so that's how I'm able to keep the shape nice and crisp. And you can see the movements of the tattoo machine. I'm kind of gently rocking it back and forth. My machine is set pretty low, and I go over lines in that sort of tiny whipping technique, just to saturate the lines. But still keeping my hand pressure very light. It's something that you kind of get used to over time. You'll want to practice a lot to work on pressure. I find like oranges are really good, bananas are good, humans are the best, but when you're first starting out, definitely don't practice on humans. Use fake skin, use anything you can. So I'm done my second pass. I'm going to wipe it again, take another look at the brow, and then I'm applying more numbing, and then I'm going to switch over to brow 2. Same thing, I'm going over the lines that I created during the blueprint or the skeleton, and I'm reinforcing them by going back over them, bringing my machine back and forth. As you're working on the brows, it's always a good idea to stand up and look at the client from a front facing position, like stand. Right now you can see I'm behind her over her head, so you would want to stand beside the bed and look at her from straight on. I find that as you work, your eyes get tired, you're kind of, staring at one thing. It's really good to stand up and get a different perspective to make sure that the symmetry is still being met. Okay, so that is the second pass for brow 2. So I'm just wiping it really good, and then I will be applying the numbing to that brow and switching back. Okay, you can see here I have finished the brows. I have cleaned them up, threaded them, finished the third pass, and we are done.